Well, hey everybody, this is Phil Gephardt at Gephardt Strength here in Austin, Texas, and I wanted to share with you something today that most people have heard about. It's this whole idea and concept of being toned. I had a female client that just started with me this week, and when we were sitting down and measuring her and going over her goals and things like that, I was like, what can I do for you? Why are you here? Well, how can I help you? And she goes, well, I want to be and get toned. And that's a word that I hear a lot from the ladies. And while you can argue, I don't like that word, I don't understand that word, a lot of coaches have said that in the past, we know what it means, and we know what girls or guys mean when they say that. When they say they want to be toned, they basically want to see less fat and want more of the muscle exposed. So I want to chat just really quick on what it means to be toned, how you can get, quote, toned, and how to do it quickly, because it really can be done for most folks pretty quickly. So the three things I really want you to focus on. The first thing, train anaerobically, not aerobically. We need to do this for multiple reasons. I said in my last video that the lactic acid pathway is more beneficial for fat loss than the aerobic pathway, meaning get up into that higher intensity threshold where you're working really hard and you're out of breath and you might not be able to speak in complete sentences before taking a breath. So you want to get up there really high heart rates. You also, sprints over long steady state cardio. You also want to train with weights. That is also anaerobic training. If you do a set of squats at a 3-0-1-0 tempo for 8 to 10 reps, I guarantee you by the end of that set, you're going to be out of breath, all right, if you use the correct weight. Now, why this also is important is because when you're training in a caloric deficit, you need to train with weights to keep your muscle on. The more lean muscle mass that we can keep on you, obviously there'll be more lean muscle mass visible once we start to shed some of that fat. Remember, muscle is more metabolically active than fat. So we're going to be burning more calories. You're going to be, again, keeping that muscle mass on and having more of it exposed when we burn our fat. So when you're in a caloric deficit and training, you need to train with weights to keep the muscle mass on. And speaking of a caloric deficit, so we talked about training. The next thing is we need to be in a caloric deficit. The whole idea of calories in, calories out is a really argued and debated topic in health and fitness. And while there are a lot of other components going on between hormones and stress and inflammation and blah, 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 the biggest piece of the pie and what it comes down to is we really need to be in a caloric deficit. So energy balance. How much energy am I consuming versus how much energy am I expending? And if we're in a slight caloric deficit for a good amount of time, chances are we should lose weight, all right? And if we're not, we need to go back and evaluate that. That's why I really encourage my clients to track their food, to measure their food, to make sure that we are getting enough food, yet in a caloric balance, or in a caloric deficit. So what does that mean? One thing is we need to eat enough protein, all right? This is also a much debated topic. My stance and my philosophy is you need to have at least 1 gram per lean pound of body mass on your body, all right? Now, if you can get to a gram per pound of body weight, great. So for me, I'm right around 210 pounds. So I should be having 210 grams of protein per day. For some people, if you figure 150, 160 pound female, that might seem like a heck of a lot when you start to look on paper at what you're eating and you're not anywhere close to that. What I recommend is subtract 20% from your body weight. So if you're 150 pounds, you're going to subtract about 30 pounds. So you're looking at now 120 grams of protein. All right, that's a good place to start. Divide it up over 3 or 4 meals and you're good to go. From there, you want to limit carbohydrates on your non-training days, and you want to prioritize your carbs on your training days. Okay, so on a day where you're just doing cardio, or on a day where you don't exercise, you're just doing your work thing, you're doing your family thing, you're going to limit carbs to maybe having some with dinner. All right, that's my recommendation. And then on a day where you train, you're going to have an extra serving of carbohydrates, and potentially more depending on how lean or how fat you are, but it tends to be a sliding scale. So the leaner you are, the more carbs, less fat. The fatter you are, the more fat and less carbs. So prioritize your carbs on training days, less on non-training. Eat your grams of protein, the amount of body weight that you have in pounds. So if you're 200 pounds, 200 grams. If that seems too high, subtract 20%. And overall, you're gonna stay in a caloric deficit, okay? So we got training, we got stay in a caloric deficit, and then the third thing is you gotta sleep. And you gotta get enough sleep and quality sleep. Sleep is the most anabolic activity that we do. Much more anabolic than training, actually. So we need to sleep. What anabolic means is growth. It means recovery. So it also helps to keep our ghrelin hormone at bay. Ghrelin is our hunger hormone. And the studies show that when we don't sleep enough, that ghrelin is heightened, meaning we're hungry more and we tend to crave more caloric dense foods. We tend to crave more sweet foods, more carbohydrate based foods, because our body's low on energy and it needs energy. So it's a way of balancing out. So get enough sleep to help manage and maintain your hunger, your hormones ghrelin and leptin, okay, your hunger and satiety hormones. Get enough sleep for muscle recovery, and that will help you stay anabolic, stay in a rested and recovered state. It will help to help increase your insulin sensitivity, making your body's ability to process and digest and assimilate carbohydrates better, as well as will help to modulate and keep at bay and keep more stable your cortisol hormones or your stress hormones, and help regulate the HPA axis, including your adrenals. So train hard, be in a caloric deficit, don't forget your protein, and get adequate sleep, get good quality sleep. Those are my 3 tips to be toned. And what we really are talking about with toning is lower body fat, keeping your muscle mass on. So that's it for now. Until next time, we'll see you.